Welcome back, listeners. Well, it's just me today. Well, it's not just me, but we're missing Barry. We've got somebody like Barry. We've got Ari, and it's ARI. Yeah, so we've got Ari with us. But first, we're going to talk about the partners before we talk about and get you excited about Ari and the product that he's got and lots of interesting stuff. We're going to go through our partners of the podcast. So first up, we have CANNA, and they are canna.uk.official on Instagram. And they also have TikTok now, so go and check them out on TikTok. One of the most forward-thinking companies. Check out CANNA and canna-uk.com. All your nutrient needs, everything you need to know about growing with liquid nutrients, check out CANNA. AutoPot are at AutoPot_global or AutoPot Cultivation Consultancy, and their website is autopot.co.uk. Check them out for gravity-fed, no electricity, very clean, a great way of growing plants in a system with using no electricity. Fantastic. And a system for every grow as well. Go and check them out at AutoPot. Next up, SANlight. They are SANlight_LED and SANlight UK. Check their website out at SANlight.com. They are LEDs. If you're right in the middle of summer now, it's getting warm. Change those HPSs out for LEDs. You're going to be able to crack on in the summer when normally you're putting things to bed. Next up, we have can filters, everything you need for air and extraction. Instagram, they are Airwin Can Filters and canfilters.nl, and their website is canfilters.nl. If you're not growing in a room and you'd rather grow in a tent, then it's got to be BudBox. BudBox Grow Tents on Instagram and budboxgrowtents.com. Check them out. The innovators of growing tents. White lined, silver lined, military grade zips. You will not go wrong with a BudBox tent. Next up, we have Gavita, the legends of horticultural lighting. They are Gavita International, Gavita North America, and their website is gavita.com. Everything from lamps to shades to ballasts, everything you need to light up a room, you can get from Gavita. And last but by no means least, we have Garden Culture Magazine on Instagram and gardenculturemagazine.com. Big shout out to Eric and Celia. Love you lots. And thank you very much for being a partner. Right, they're our partners. We're going to get into the interesting conversation right after Coatsy puts the intro here.
All good? Ready to go? Turn my voice up a little bit. Oh, God, for everyone watching, the whole family.
Are you ready to go? Are you built to be in the house that I built, in the booth that I built?
I know people tune in every Sunday to listen, but even when business is good, we still manage to do the podcast.
It's usually a harmonica part in this section, but I don't have it here with me. So. That's it for now.
Oh, that's the first time we've ever introed with the guitar.
Right.
So you are the first out of 242 episodes. The first one to have a guitar on the podcast.
I just happened to see it and
and you tuned it, fixed it, cleaned it, and now it's singing like a bird.
Yeah, I hadn't played in a while, so I just saw it and had to play it.
You had to get into it.
Exactly.
So we have Ari on the NPK Live podcast. Firstly, thank you very much for joining us. You've literally landed in the UK today. What time did you leave?
I left Israel at 12:55 a.m. last night and flew to Turkey, landed in Turkey at around 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and then from there flew direct to Manchester and landed at 9:50 in the morning. So I've been here a few hours now.
Very
And
nice.
luckily for me, there's not a lot of time difference between Israel and here, so not really jet lagged.
Amazing. So thank you very much for dropping into Liverpool on your is it a 10-day trip around the UK?
Exactly, yeah.
Amazing.
And first time I've been back in the UK since I was 16, so it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and first time, with roaming around for work.
Yeah, so you with Jay from Highlight, aren't you? He's taking you around the UK. Have you been to Liverpool before?
No.
Are you staying in Liverpool tonight?
I'll be staying in Liverpool tonight, yeah.
So we're traveling around the UK with Jay. And Highlight, and we're talking about Dynomyco.
Absolutely.
Tell me, I know about Dynomyco. Well, we sell it because, we'll tell you something now, we test 99% of the products that we sell in the shop. We have to make informed decisions. But if it's sold by Highlight and it's recommended by Jay, it gets onto the shelf much quicker. So we'll do an order, and we bought some little sample sachets as well. This works really well. So straight off the block, Dynomyco is a tried and tested NPK product. So off the back of that, tell me a little bit about the history of it. What's your role within Dynomyco? How long's it been going? Give me a bit of the background of it.
So it's tried and tested. It's based on over 30 years of R&D in Israel. And we launched in April of 2019. So 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago. And the first year, I've been with the company for 4.5 years. And the first year of my involvement within the company was we were doing research on in Israel, right? We're a company based out of Israel, and Israel is the pioneer of medical cannabis in the world. And we were doing trials with medical cannabis strains and growers in Israel. And that's where we collected our data and all the information on the product. So that's where it started out from. Obviously, you can use it on a wide array of plants, and you can use it for your cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, garlic, onion, basically all your plants, and except for brassicas. So no cauliflower, broccoli, spinach.
Okay, what's the sketch there? How come you shouldn't use it on them?
Well, it's not that you shouldn't, but they just they don't associate with mycorrhizal fungi. They deter mycorrhizal fungi. So if you have a garden which you're companion planting, or if you grow brassicas and then the following year you grow a plant which is an obligate mycotroph, which means that it requires mycorrhiza to grow optimally, such as corn, olives, cannabis, for instance, then those plants aren't going to grow as well as they would with the presence of mycorrhizal fungi.
That's mad.
Yeah.
And do they like exude anything out the roots? Do they give off something that deters?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do we know what that compound is?
I don't know exactly. I don't remember what it's called, but it is a compound which it deters mycorrhizal fungi.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder then if anyone has created a product where they've extracted this compound out of the cabbages and broccolis and sprouts. Mustards.
Yep.
Celery?
No, celery. You
it's
can't.
Good?
Yeah.
So broccoli, sprouts, all them sorts of the brassicas. I wonder then if you had a really healthy grown plant, you harvest the plant. I wonder if you got the roots, blended them up, and then put them like an anti-fungi product.
So if I'm not mistaken, there was a company that we were in touch with in Canada that was doing something similar as a natural fungicide.
Yeah,
using it, and but I think they moved on to other stuff since. People love chemicals for some reason. They don't like they don't like natural stuff for some reason.
You know what I did back in the day, and I've only done it once because it stinks, and if you've done it yourself, you'll know the smell. But I talk about it quite often on the podcast because I think everyone should do it once. Basically, I went nettle foraging. So about 2014-15, I'm doing when I was doing my most research around hydroponics and hydroponic growing, all the elements. I'm a bit sciencey, a bit geeky at heart. And I came across silica. I was looking, and silica in 2014-15 in the UK wasn't a really big additive.
Me and Jay were talking about how silica just blew up over the last few years.
I'm telling you. So it was all potassium silicate in 2014-15. I might be mistaken, but I don't remember there being monosilicics.
Monosilicic.
I don't remember them being in the UK at least. So I'm researching this element, and I'm like, okay, so it's not an essential one of the 17 essential plant nutrients, but it protects against overwatering, underwatering, too high in EC, too low in EC, too hot, too cold, strengthens the cells, makes it hard for pests to consume and eat the chlorophyll, makes the plant leaves potentially bigger because they're stronger. The plant can support itself because it's strong. All these amazing benefits. I was like, and we're adding potassium silicate, which is mostly potassium, and you're just about getting silicate out there, and it raises the pH. This is mad. So I looked at better ways of getting silica, and there's the natural way is nettles. So you pull off the nettles from the stem. You've got to get a kilo of really good green nettle leaf, and you put it into, off the top of my head, it was 5 litres or 10 litres of water. It might be a litre per kilo or 10 litres per kilo. So you'd add it all in, and then you put a lid on it and you leave it to ferment for 2 weeks, and you check the lid every now and again, and you know it's fermented when it starts to bubble. So you strain all of the gunk out, and what you're left is the raw, high nitrogen, high silica from I forget the proper word for them, but the nettle stings. They're pure silica, and they break down, and you feed your plants this absolute horse manure shit. Ugh. If you get it on your hands, you don't get it off for weeks, and you dilute it down a little bit. Actually, you put like 250 ml of this to 750 ml of water, spray it on your plants, and oh my God, the difference was unbelievable. Have you ever smelt it? Have you ever tried it?
I've only read articles about the smell. Haven't tried it yet.
Oh, it's bad. It's really bad. And people were spraying it in the houses because I'd bottle it up, seal it up, and I think it lasted 2 or 3 weeks. And I was actually giving it away in the shop on my first batch, and people coming in going, listen, my plants have never looked so good, but my missus has kicked me out the house. She said she can't have that smell in there. It's horrific, but it's natural.
Yeah.
And so that's a really interesting bit of a side story off of why people use chemicals and not natural.
If you had
products.
added maybe, a little perfume to it also might have
lasted a bit longer. Might have actually made some sales.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, when it comes to a lot of microbials, they have funky smells, and a lot of ferments have funky smells, and people, especially if they're growing indoors, they don't want to deal with that at all.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of understandable.
So what is it that makes Dynomyco? Because there's a lot of microbial products on the market, a lot of good ones. What I really was interested in, and again, this is when I was really getting in, after I did my silica research, I started looking at microbes, and we did a big PGR campaign. Long-time listeners of the podcast will know the PGR campaign we did. So there's good PGRs or natural PGRs, and there's the synthetic ones, the bad ones. And there's a lot of there's quite a few PGRs in some products that get sold in the UK, and people don't know. So we did a big campaign, test your nutrients by an independent lab and get it NPK approved. We did that, and it worked a treat. Quite a few companies signed up. My next thing to go and look into was microbes, and I'm going to pick up the back of the packet because we see on here it's got all the relevant information. What I wanted to get into is it's really easy to write on the back of a packet XXX propagoules per gram. I think there's another way of saying it, isn't there? There's propagoules per gram, and there's another word that
You're looking for CFUs.
CFUs, yeah.
CFUs are for microbes, bacteria.
Microbes, that's the one. We're brushing up. We're brushing off the cobwebs. So CFUs for bacteria.
Yep.
Propagoules per gram for
fungi.
Yeah. How do we know that? Because I know Dynomyco is a stand-up company, and with Israel being, we've got a science background, a lot of research, not just for hydroponics and for growing, a lot of research. Israel has some of the top scientists in the world, hands down. So if this product comes out of Israel and it's been tested by SANlight and we've tested it, we know it's 99% going to do what it says on the packet. But there's a lot of mischievous companies out there. Is there any way of knowing, or is there some light you can shed on this whole? So you've got Glomus intraradices.
Intraradices, yeah.
That's the one. 700 propagoules per gram, and that's 19,840 propagoules per ounce. Now, even for me, I know a little bit. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So can you sort of shed a little bit of light on that?
Yeah, so we have in Dynomyco 700 propagules per gram of Glomus intratices, and then another 200 propagules per gram of Glomus massae. So these are two different species of mycorrhizal fungi, and they are endomycorrhizal fungi, which means that they penetrate into the cells of the roots of the plant. And from there, they start branching out into the soil or cocoa or growing media, whichever one you're using. And that's when they start pulling in nutrients for the plant and water for the plant. When you're searching and looking for mycorrhizal fungi products, you want to make sure that you know what's inside it, right? So if it doesn't say what's inside the product, there's nothing on the label, that already should raise a few red flags for you, because it's like, it would be like the equivalent of you buying a nutrient line and not having it say what the NPK content is.
Okay, so if that's what the first thing to people look out for, what if they get this common answer? We don't put it on the packet because we don't want people to copy us. Is that a good enough response?
I would I'd be very
dubious.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing really to hide when you're talking about your active ingredients, right? On the contrary, if you're not open and willing to share what's in your product, then it raises questions. Why aren't you revealing what's inside the product? You know. So,
some people are replying saying that, well, what's to stop somebody who can get access to the intradices and Musea? What's to stop somebody else from just going, oh, that's what Dynomyco have got at 700 propagules and 200 propagules. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and put 800 propagules in and 300 propagules in and make a, in inverted commas, better product. That's what some of these arguments would be. We want to keep it secret because somebody will copy us.
Well, the tough thing with mycorrhizal fungi is that it's difficult to produce compared to bacteria. And so one of our competitors is at 300 propagules per gram, and they were considered for years like the top standard and super concentrated product. And then all of a sudden we came out and we're at 900, which is 3 times that concentration. And we don't see a lot of products with high concentrations. For the most part, it's very low concentrations of fungi because it's difficult to produce in large numbers at a cost-effective number, right? So if you do have high numbers of propagules, for the most part, it'll cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, that's one thing. The second thing is that not a lot of companies actually produce their own mycorrhizal fungi because it's a difficult operation to create. And because of that, a lot of companies end up outsourcing their fungi. There's only so much you can outsource at a certain price to make your product still competitive. And so most products out there have a much lower concentration and a much higher application rate than what we have.
Yeah.
And then, so that's one of the things which is difficult to copy. Our production method is very unique. We don't reveal how we produce it, because if we had a patent on it, we would basically reveal to the world how we manufacture and produce our fungi, which is not something that we want to do. So it's our IP. And then the types of strains that we use inside of Dynomyco are very unique. The main strain of Glomus intratices was isolated in the Dead Sea region by Professor Yoram Kopolnik, who was head of the Volcani Agricultural Research Organization in Israel, which is a government-backed organization. And he isolated this strain about 35 years ago in the 80s. And he was studying mycorrhizal fungi, and he picked up a bunch of products which were available at the time and did research and saw absolutely no benefit from these products. And he realized that if he was going to research mycorrhizal fungi properly, he's going to have to find strains and cultivate them himself and then do research. And that's exactly what he did. So he went to literally the saltiest area in the world, which is the Dead Sea, and found some plants which were able to survive in that heat and salinity in the soil, and he cultivated some of the fungi, and from there he started doing his research, and lo and behold, he really saw these noticeable differences in plants treated with fungi versus plants that weren't treated with the fungi, and that biotic and abiotic stressors. So from giving the plants less water and still seeing, increases in yields, or giving them less fertilizer and still seeing that, or putting them into pathogen infested plots and seeing what happened to the plants. And, all in all, the results were much more favorable to the plants that had the mycorrhizal fungi inside them. So fast forward, about 30 years, and here I am doing these trials with medical cannabis companies in Israel, and seeing massive differences in plant growth and yield and plant health and color and all these other, just huge differences that you can see. And if you go onto our Instagram or YouTube, you'll be able to see some of the videos as well.
What is your Instagram and YouTube?
It's at Dynomyco, Dynomyco, and same thing for YouTube as well. And you can just see just massive differences in the plants, and the proof is in the pudding, as they say.
Yeah, so get out there and start. After you've listened to the podcast, don't just cut us short. Still loads of good information to go. But after the podcast, we'll say the names again at the end, just to remind you. But go and check that out. So am I correct? Would I be correct in saying that mycorrhizal are a plant's secondary root system? Would that be a correct way of describing how mycorrhizal work?
So if you were to go back about 450 million years ago, you'd be talking about the primary root system, because when plants, they went from aquatic life to, land, they didn't have any root systems. And they relied on these fungi to pull in the nutrients and water for them. But as plants evolved, they developed these root systems, but they still needed the fungi to perform certain tasks. So the fungi, they now are a secondary root system, and they allow the plants to absorb nutrients which are physically and chemically out of the plant's reach. So the fungi, the hyphal strands are a lot smaller than roots, and they're able to penetrate into very, very small nooks and crannies in soil. And they're also able to, they secrete enzymes which the plant doesn't, and these enzymes are break down chemical binds in the soil. When you're applying phosphorus into your soil, it can bind and get locked, and without the help of fungi, it'll stay in the soil, but with the fungi, it'll be able to pull it into the plant.
Yeah. What would you say if people don't use mycorrhizal products and they're growing indoors? Would you say there's anybody that shouldn't be using mycorrhizal fungi, or should everybody that's growing indoors, or everybody just growing in general, can everybody benefit from using mycorrhiza?
If you're growing brassicas, then no.
No, just a waste of money.
For the most part, it's definitely beneficial, and I'm biased, but I look at everybody and I cannot believe people still don't use mycorrhizal fungi, because it's an insurance policy. That's the way I look at it. That, worst case, you used it and nothing happened. But if things go sour and you forget to water, or you overwater, or your pH is out of whack and stuff like that, then the fungi have a huge role and can literally save your crop. That level. If you're growing in certain types of hydroponic media, like or an aeroponic, for instance, and if you're in a DWC system and you apply the product to the water, the fungi might not latch on to the roots and not penetrate into the roots and create that symbiotic relationship, so you might not benefit from it. So it's really important to know when to apply the product and how to apply the product also.
Right. So if we're in DWC, personally, my favorite way of growing, I inoculated one. As soon as you take the cutting, you've got roots, I'm trying to inoculate as soon as I can. First first transplant, I'm inoculating. Second transplant, if I do one, I'll inoculate again. And then final transplant, in DWC, I tended to use it like a ceramus, and I would inoculate even in the ceramus, just so like it's first contact's been made. Like you say, once it's in the water, it used to go quite gloopy. I've tried it. It goes gloopy and you're just thinking it's not really got any benefit. So as long as you've made that first contact on them very first set of roots, is that good enough?
That's the most important one, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, the earlier you apply it in the plant's life, the better off the plant is. Also, another thing is that the mycorrhizal fungi, when they penetrate the plants, they penetrate at the root tips.
Yeah.
So if you're top dressing, a lot of times you can't guarantee that it'll actually get down to those roots, those root tips, and make a difference. So definitely when you're considering, if you are considering using mycorrhizal fungi, the earlier in the plant's life, the better off you are. And then at every transplant, you do want to inoculate it again, just because you can help prevent transplant shock. And the plants, they don't skip a beat with it in the growing media.
Amazing. I need your keys. Okay, so that is a brilliant top tip. Literally, the mycorrhiza have got to penetrate the tip, top tip.
Exactly.
Let's have a look how Dynomyco says for the application instructions. So, suitable for horticultural nursery, initial planting of seeds, clones, or seedlings. We use 1 teaspoon of Dynomyco per pint, or 10.5 grams per litre of growing media. Use it uniformly in the growing media before planting. What's the difference between the ones that you place in like a concentrated powder and the one that you spread evenly all around the soil? What's the difference in benefit there?
Well, basically, as I said, because the fungi can only penetrate at the root tips, if you only have it at the in the planting hole, then once they've passed the planting hole, there's no more fungi to latch on. So ideally, you'd want to mix it into the growing media and also place it directly in the planting hole for the most benefit.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, just because as the plant roots expand in the soil, they're excreting hormones which they're at 0.3 ppt, so parts per trillion, and the fungi are actually able to sense this hormone, and it's like a call to action for the fungi to make its way towards the plant. Now, the plant also, it lets down its guard, so its immune system is suppressed to allow this fungus to penetrate into its root system. And so, like I said, the earlier, the better off it is. And if it's spread out, you're going to allow the plants multiple chances to meet these fungi along the way as these roots grow out into your pot.
Yeah, so like, of course, as the roots grow, we don't just have a few root tips. As they grow, they create new root tips. And if you're just doing a planting hole, they're missing out on inoculation, aren't they?
Exactly.
Another boss top tip. And then on transplantation to large containers, apply Dynomyco at 1 teaspoon per gallon, which is 1 teaspoon per 1.3 grams per litre, either mixed in growing media or spread in bottom and sides of the planting hole. How long? So I've got a pound. I think this is a pound.
1.6.
Yes, 750 grams, 26 ounces, 900 propagules per gram. Highly potent content. What's the life of a product like this?
Well, it's 2 years from the moment we've manufactured it, and we have to put on an expiration date on the product.
Yeah.
But the product, if 2 years from the manufacturing date, if you open the bag, it's not going to, not everything is going to be dead inside it. There's a degradation to the product. So that doesn't mean that you'll open up the bag and you'll find dead spores in it. But, if you open it up within 2 years and X months, it might not be as concentrated as it was initially.
Okay, so like this packet that we've got here, if we've not opened this, does this mean that the expiration date is we can look
Yeah,
past it.
it's not like milk or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
You can still use it for sure. And with the 900 propagules per gram, it's one of those things that we have it at so that when you open the bag and there's 1 day left before it expires, you're going to open it up and there's still going to be 900 propagules per gram in it. And the way that we test for the strength of the mycorrhizal fungi is different than most other companies. There's several ways to test the concentration. There's a visual method to test it, where you can take a product, you dilute it in water, and then you take a gram, you look under the microscope, and then you start counting. Okay, there's a spore, there's another spore, there's a hyphae, there's a root fragment, and each one of those makes up a propagule. But the other way, and that's a test that's called MIP. And then the other way to test it is called MPN, which is the most probable number. And that's another way to test the concentration and the strength of the product itself, which means that you take the product and you start diluting it by 10 to the negative N power. And so you'll take a gram, then you'll take 1/10 of a gram, 100th of a gram, 1,000th of a gram, and you'll see at what levels does it still colonize your plant roots. And then you'll know that the higher, the higher you go diluting it and still seeing, colonization, that you have a very vigorous strain of fungi that's still able to colonize your roots.
Okay.
So it's not just a visual test, because when you do visual tests, if you take a hyphae, a fragment, which let's say is 1 millimeter in, let's say 1 centimeter in length, and then you take that right at 1 centimeter, you can consider it one propagule. But if you take that propagule and you cut it into 1,000,000 pieces, if you do a visual test, now you have 1,000,000 propagules rather than just one propagule.
Yeah.
So that's an inaccurate test, because it doesn't really give you an estimate of how strong the product is. Because if you took those 1,000,000 propagules and then you applied it and you didn't get colonization, it doesn't matter what you have inside it. Exactly. So the most probable number is it's a much more accurate way to measure the strength of the inoculant. And that's where we really stand out, where the fungi, like I said, that the type of fungi that we have, which was isolated in the Dead Sea, it's just a very, very vigorous strain of mycorrhizal fungi. That's what makes the magic happen.
Amazing. So you just said there about a propagule and what is a propagule. So just remind us, one propagule would be a hyphae, a root
fragment,
and
spores.
And you need all three for.
So all three make a whole inoculum, and that's when you have a whole inoculum. When you have all three, it has a higher infection or inoculation potential.
Yeah.
And when you have just spores, for instance, you can manufacture mycorrhizal fungi in two ways. You can manufacture them with host plants, or you can manufacture them in petri dishes. If you manufacture them in petri dishes, you're using sterile techniques. You have mostly carrot roots, which are genetically modified carrot roots, so that they don't actually develop, the shoots, and they just the roots, and they grow in these petri dishes. But the problem is that it's completely sterile. There's no there's no temperature fluctuation. There's no introduction of macro elements. No watering, no fertilization, nothing whatsoever. It's like a boy in the bubble. And then when you go into to introduce these fungi to your plants, and they're all of a sudden outdoors, they have to combat, with real world elements. But when you do this petri dish method, you can get, you know exactly what you're getting, because you can really harvest your spores properly. So that's a serious advantage, right? But the other method is to take live plants, and once you have live plants, you're fertilizing them, you're watering them. They have temperature fluctuations, light fluctuations. You might have some stuff. You have other microbes in the soil. You have multiple stuff in this soil, which the fungi are getting accustomed to and living with. And then you're gonna harvest the fungi from this living plant. And then you're going to take the root fragments and the hyphae and the spores. And what's very, very difficult, and we've cracked the code on how to do this, is to do it in a very clean and efficient manner and get, the spores, the hyphae, and the root fragments all together at a cost-effective, production method.
Well, that's the IP.
That's the IP.
What's the benefit of all three? So I can guess the hyphae. I can guess the spore.
Mm-hmm.
What's the benefits
of the root fragments?
Of the root fragments.
So the root fragments have they have arbuscules. Sometimes they'll have spores inside them, and they also have hyphae already growing inside them. So it's like when you take mushrooms, for instance, and if you cut a mushroom and in a clean area and then put it on a petri dish, that mushroom will start growing. Same thing if you took a spore and put it on, a few spores and put it on a petri dish, those will start growing as well. So it's the beautiful thing about fungi is that they can reproduce or continue living from multiple things. So from the spore, they'll sporulate again, or from the hyphae, they'll continue growing, or from these root fragments, they'll have your arbuscules, which are where the fungi store sugars, right? And so when you have these root fragments, you have arbuscules, you have, the vesicles are where the root fragments are, where the sugars are stored. And so you have the vesicles, you have the arbuscules. Arbuscules are where the sugars from the plant and the nutrients from the fungi are exchanged between the two. So when you have these roots, you have also the hyphae, also the arbuscules, and these vesicles, and sometimes spores also, all, in close vicinity and inside the roots. So you're getting all of this in one.
That's intense, isn't it? That's a boss explanation.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the best ways it's been explained to me. Fantastic, that.
Yeah, and it's just, like I said, when you have all three together, it's, we can, consider it the entourage effect.
Yes, that's what we like.
Exactly. That's what we can compare it to. You get everything, and it just increases the chances of you inoculating the plant. Now, if we go back to the beginning of what's so special about these propagules and why you need a high number of propagules, is that you're talking about microscopic organisms, and if you don't have a large number of them, the chances of colonizing your roots and for you to actually see benefits, the lower the number, the lower the chances are for you to actually see benefits. So the higher the number is, the more likely you are to colonize the roots, the more likely you are to see benefits from this symbiotic relationship between the plant and the fungus.
Amazing. I think you've already answered this, but I've had a question, and it's probably been a question I've put out there for the last 2 years. I haven't really had much of an answer back, but I think you've answered it in this podcast.
I hope I can.
So I think you already have, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just because I ask it all the time. So what came first? The plant exuding the sugars to attract the mycorrhiza, or the mycorrhiza attaching onto the root and giving the plant its benefits? Which one came first? Ooh. But I think you answered it by saying that the mycorrhiza was the first root system.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, so what's interesting is that if a plant is in like an ideal conditions, I'm talking about perfect, 100%, which is very, very, very rare in my opinion.
Yeah.
Most likely in everybody's opinion, there's always something that's missing. Or, but let's say it's in the perfect ideal conditions. Everything is available to the plant at the exact perfect levels. The pH is perfect. Everything is perfect. You're in a 5-star hotel for the plant. That plant is not going to need anything, right? And so if it doesn't need the mycorrhizal fungi, it's not going to associate with it because it has to give up some sugars or something towards the plant, towards the fungi. But if you're not at ideal conditions, and almost every grower is never at ideal conditions, there's always something. There's always something you're dealing with. Then the fungi can associate, and the plant will want to associate with the mycorrhizal fungi.
I think that's really interesting. So, like the plant roots, did it exude is it right to say sugars? The carbohydrates?
Yep.
So did the plant exude their carbohydrates to attract the mycorrhiza? Or,
Well, they exude other chemicals in order to attract it, but once it's already been associated, then they exude these sugars. They provide the carbohydrates to the fungi, and then in return, the fungi pull in different nutrients and water for the plants.
So I wonder now, then, if you're saying if a plant in a perfect environment doesn't need to associate with a mycorrhiza, does that mean that it doesn't need to exude the carbohydrates, or is that just something?
Well,
that
it wouldn't exude them to the fungi. It might exude them, if there's bacteria in the area. But it exudes. It provides the fungi with these sugars and carbohydrates once it's already inside. So this exchange happens inside the cell.
Yeah.
And I'll show you photos afterwards, and you can look at it. It's in a place called arbuscules, and it literally looks like tree branches almost, and that's where the exchange happens. And this happens inside of the cells of the plants, and so, but it excretes these hormones to attract the fungus, right? And if it doesn't need the fungus, it won't call on it for help, right? So that's what's interesting.
Do you believe that some people call fungi like the telephone?
The Wood Wide Web.
The Wood Wide Web, yeah. Do you, and then there's people that say and think that they're proven that a tree 5 miles away is communicating with another tree. And if one tree or plant becomes under attack, the tree 5 miles away will know that it's the community is under attack and start to produce, let's say it's a predator eating the leaves, it'll start to produce bitter tasting compounds so that when it gets its leaves eaten, the predator will go away.
Oh yeah, it happens. There's a scientist out in British Columbia, I think. I'm not sure if I'm pretty positive it's BC in Canada. Lady by the name of Suzanne. I'm not sure what her last name is, but she did a TED talk about how trees talk to each other. And the mother plant, she has a book about it, finding the mother tree.
Yeah.
And a few other books also. But she basically showed how she was able to track nutrients moving from one tree to another tree with the help of this hyphal network.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So a plant, let's say 5 miles away, it's got plentiful resources of nutrients. Through the mycorrhizal network, they can actually sort of transport an area of wealth in terms of nutrients and move it across the plant network to areas where it's not so wealthy in terms of nutrients, and so every tree is getting fed equally.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's over 5 miles. That's a big area. But I think the largest organism on the planet was discovered in Oregon. And it's a fungus. It's a honey fungus, if I'm not mistaken, and it's across hundreds of acres.
You're reading my mind. It's like you know what questions I'm asking next, because I love it when most people answer blue whale.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting fact that I like, that the largest living organism on the planet is a fungi. And can you remember how far it stretched?
I can look it up on Google, but it's miles upon miles upon miles. Yeah, hundreds, if I'm not mistaken. It covers a massive area, and this is actually a parasitic fungus, so it'll basically kill everything that's in its path.
Yeah,
not everything, but a lot of trees. Yeah.
Wow. So they're trying to kill the largest organism on the planet.
No, so the fungus, which is the largest organism on the planet, it's a parasitic fungi, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll attack trees and decompose them and break them. So it's there's the balance of good and evil and all that stuff. But so this scientist, she showed that trees are definitely able to communicate with one another, and if you haven't had a chance to watch Fantastic Fungi, I highly suggest you do.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of TED Talks that she gave about the subject as well, and she's got books out. And
is there anything good on Netflix?
Fantastic Fungi
is that on Netflix?
That's on Netflix.
Okay, so Fantastic Fungi on Netflix. I'll be watching that tonight.
Yeah, it's a mind-boggling.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it took the author, not the author, the director, about 12 years of filming.
Yeah.
Yeah, to come out with the movie. And I mean, you see mushrooms just in super, high speed. What do you call it? Stop motion? Not stop
Like
motion.
hyperlapse,
Hyperlapse. Yeah, you could time lapse. There we
time
go.
lapse.
There we go. So you can see it in time lapse. These mushrooms just popping up, and and how he knew exactly where they would pop up, and where to place the cameras and all that stuff. It's really amazing. And then you have a bunch of experts from mycology experts, not just mycorrhiza experts, but experts in multiple fields that have to do with fungi. So Paul Stamets is in there, and you have Suzanne, you have Michael Pollan, who's an author, and it's just a fascinating movie. The filming is just incredible.
I'll watch it for that as well. On that note, though, about the honey fungus and being competitive and killing trees, there's bad fungus as well, and we'll have them in the form of Pythium. So what about the competitiveness of this Intradices and Mosaea? Is it easily outcompeted, or if you had Pythium, will it remove Pythium, or will it make it harder for the Pythium to take hold? How strong is it?
So basically, it's the fungi, when you introduce them early in the plant's life and they've already colonized the plant, it acts as a barrier, and kind of it prevents other species from attacking and penetrating the plant and harming it. So we've done stuff where we'll apply the mycorrhizal fungi to plants, and then we'll place the plants in Pythium infested soil and see what happens. And those that have been treated with mycorrhizal fungi will
resist for longer.
Will fare much better, may even produce fruit, and without any
chemicals,
fungicides or anything like that, just with the mycorrhizal fungi.
So it really is that important to not only can it resist Pythium, which is it. Once you've got Pythium, it's very, very hard to get rid of it. It's like just drag yourself over the finish line if you can, by using whatever methods you can. So if you inoculate early, your resistance to Pythium goes through the roof. And people always say, I hate this saying, bigger roots, bigger fruits, because bigger roots also means a bigger organism, or a bigger thing to keep alive. So the plant has to create more energy to keep the root system alive. So you could actually bigger roots, bigger fruits does my head in. I like better roots, better fruits, or better roots, bigger fruits, doesn't matter. This is definitely creating better roots. It's creating that people love the root ball. This is the unseen root ball, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and also what's interesting is not necessarily bigger the roots, bigger the fruit, but we've had better roots in smaller pots, producing more fruits than bigger plants in bigger pots. So it's not necessarily the size of the pot, but what happens is if your plant is able to pull in more nutrients, then you'll be able to produce more, right? Your plants are healthier. They'll be able to just like humans, if you're healthier, you're eating better, you're now starting to ride your bike. Eating healthy, you're going to perform a whole lot better also. So that's the exact same thing with the plants.
If I take some of this, will this help with my cycling?
We've actually had people ask us if they can eat our product, which is pretty funny. I mean, it's the carrier is clay and vermiculite. So if you want to chew on some clay and vermiculite, go for it. But,
not harmful though.
No,
okay.
No. I mean,
might give you the shits.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, you probably ate a lot of clay, so nothing happened to you, I don't think. But it's not like a lot of people like drink. They'll drink different bacteria to get their gut microbiome very, But it's not the same with the fungi, right? So another thing with mycorrhizal fungi is that myco, right, means fungus, and rhiza means root. So these mycorrhizal fungi, they need roots in order to live. Like they'll remain dormant if they don't have roots or die off. But the moment you introduce a root, and that hormone is sent off, and the fungus starts traveling towards the root, if it doesn't get connected with the root within a certain amount of time, it'll just die off, because if it's a spore, it's it has sugars inside that spore. It has enough energy inside it to last as long as it needs in a dormant state. But the moment it's sporulated, it needs to come into contact with that root in order to start pulling in the carbohydrates to keep it going and start feeding.
Yeah. It's a proper living organism, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and fungi are much closer to human beings than they are to plants.
Okay.
Yeah.
More close in terms of DNA structure.
Yeah,
and that.
So we're much closer to fungi than we are to plants, and I like to think of like our what's it called? Our nervous system,
Mm.
like how it branches out,
Yeah,
right, from the
yeah.
brain and all over. It's like very similar to what a hyphae highway looks like, under a microscope.
Yeah, mad. Do you know, like, always the random facts that I read in books pop up, and I don't think it's related to mycorrhizae, but it's one of the most interesting facts, plant growing, that I've come across. And it's, if you know the inside of a plant cell, you've got your chlorophyll, your chloroplast, your mitochondria. I actually read in a book that the mitochondria used to be a bacteria, and that it was it associated itself within a cell, and so a mitochondria used to be a living bacteria associated with a cell and became the powerhouse of the plant leaf. And I just think there's so much like untapped knowledge around bacteria and mycorrhiza that it's just, I feel like people undervalue it.
They just I was reading a doctor in Israel who he started discussing all these different how microbes help the body, and there's an organ in the body which is made up of bacteria, and it's
Yeah.
like a new organ that they discovered just recently.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it's called?
I don't remember what it's called exactly, but it's made up of bacteria, and then it's literally, it's not a human organism. It's
Yeah.
not a human organ, right? But it's inside of our body, and our bodily functions rely on these bacteria. And go another step further. This doctor was talking about how the role of bacteria is so much greater than what we have any idea of, and how much bacteria can even affect autism.
Mm.
Yeah, so they've taken mice, perfectly healthy mice, and they've taken autistic mice, and they've taken the excrements, so the poo of mice, and put it into the healthy. So the autistic mice's, manure into the healthy mice, and these healthy mice started showing more autistic characteristics.
Yeah.
And vice versa, when they take the healthy mice poo with the bacteria and place it into the more autistic mice, they've become less autistic.
Characteristic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
They do that a little bit with humans, where it's disgusting, but they'll get really healthy humans with, when I say healthy, it's a really good gut microbiome. That's the perfect word. Gut microbiome. And they will literally take samples of the poo and put it into some of these large, small intestine that can't produce these helpful bacteria, and it helps to populate their gut flora, is it?
Mhm.
Or something like the gut microbiome. And that's disgusting. Do you know what I mean? But it just shows you how important it is. And actually, they call your gut the second brain, don't they? The second brain of the body. So if your bacteria is off balance, your whole bodily functions, you can feel depressed, you can feel low energy, low immune system, open to bacteria and viruses, just because your immune system's really, really low because of a low bacteria. What I say to everybody as well is, if you have to take a course of antibiotics for whatever reason, just go to the shops. I don't really believe in Actimels and all that for constant. I think good healthy diet will do it itself, but just take the Actimels or take the other gut promoting bacteria. I think there's two types, isn't there? There's one where it's the food probiotic. I think, been years since I've done it, but probiotic is the feed. I think prebiotics is the actual bacteria. So you've got to take a prebiotic to get your gut back up, and then take the probiotics to feed them. I think that's right. So if you're on antibiotics,
I don't know exactly which ones they are,
I know
honestly.
it's 10
But-
years since I studied it as well, so it's a little bit rusty. But basically, bacteria and mycorrhiza are super important for humans and for plants.
and
you should
for
start
the
using them
planet, not
for the planet.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, we're all made up of it.
So if it's your first outing for mycorrhizal, you've got no better place to start than Dynomyco. We've got
There's no other place to
There's
start.
no other place to start.
Well, I mean, if you start with Dynomyco, that's it. You found
You're done.
you found your forever home. But if you've been on the search for a while, you've tried different products, and you want to try something else, then definitely
Amazing.
make
What
the
countries
switch
are you
over.
in? Because we're a global podcast for America, Canada, Australia.
We're sold in the USA, in Canada, in Chile, UK,
Yeah.
Israel, obviously. We're starting to sell in Germany now and in South Africa as well.
Big market.
And
coming up.
we're available in like Trinidad and Tobago and like, some of the small Caribbean
Yeah.
islands and Guam also.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
That's it. But a lot of countries, for instance, it's very, because it's a biological product, you have registrations, and different countries require different regulatory forms and conditions, right? So
Yeah.
in order to sell a certain product, you're going to have to go through the Ministry of Agriculture in certain countries, and certain countries will require different things. So luckily, the UK didn't require any.
We're open.
Yeah, to some stuff.
Yeah.
Not to the Europeans.
Yeah.
But so we weren't required to get registration for Dynomyco here, which is super, super awesome, because we were able to just sell it right away. Whereas for instance, in the USA, if you're in Washington, you don't require registration. But if you go down south, you can literally cross the Columbia River and go into Oregon, and you're not allowed to sell the product. But if you go, 10 minutes up that bridge, I forget which bridge it is, and you're in Washington, you can sell it. But now we're registered in Oregon, we're registered in California. So the tough states to get registered in the USA, we're registered there. And we're working on registrations in other countries around the world as well. New Zealand is one that we're working on. Europe. Australia is very, very tough when it comes to their importation of biological products. So we got to see how we can crack the code with Australia. The European Union now is working on a new program to allow biofertilizers and the use of biologicals for more organic cultivation of crops. So they're working on a new program which will allow biologicals to be available at a much easier path than what has been up until now. But we're still up in the air with that, and registration costs a lot of money with these ministries of agriculture, because they want to do they'll want to do field trials, they'll want to do multiple trials, multiple sites, and all this stuff takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So not a lot of companies have the resources and the funds, and that's why a lot of times the big ag companies end up buying up the small ag companies, like the Monsantos end up buying all these small companies because they have the money to invest and get them registered and all that stuff. Whereas these smaller companies, which have been focused on, just producing high quality microbes, they don't have all those funds. So it takes a while, but we're definitely looking into France and Spain and Italy and making our way into Europe as time progresses. Holland also, of course. And when I started, my goal was to get, and still is to get every single grower on the planet to use our mycorrhizal fungi. So we're in 8 countries right now, I think, and we're not slowing down. So
amazing. So if you're a shop in the UK, you get the product from SANlight Horticulture. If you're a grower in the UK, you go and ask your shop for it. If they don't stock it, tell them to go and get it off SANlight. And if they do stock it, then they've got quite a variety of sizes as well. So there'll be a good size for whatever scale of grower you are. In America, if you're a shop in America, what's your distributor in America?
We work with Left Coast Wholesale and HRG Horticultural Rep Group as well. And in Canada, we work with Biofloral and Stellar Wholesale.
Yeah, know them.
So, yeah, I mean, we've got a bunch of awesome distributors around the world. Very, very nice people. That it's one of the best things is the people that are in,
in your little family.
Yeah, for sure. And multiple sizes from, the small gardener with, 2 plants in a tent, a little tiny tent, up to, we have a 20 kilo pail, which can treat up to 4,000 plants for, the large
big outdoor fellas.
Not only the large outdoors, but also, the large indoor or greenhouse facilities in California and wherever they are.
Amazing.
So,
the website's on the back of the packet. It is www.dynomyco.com. And what were those? So Instagram is at Dynomyco and YouTube at Dynomyco. Yeah. Go and check out the 3 things we want you to do from this podcast. Go and check out the Dynomyco YouTube. Watch all the interesting scientific videos. Go and follow them on Instagram at Dynomyco. Go and buy some Dynomyco. And then there's a 4th bonus, which is get on Netflix and watch
Fantastic Fungi. That's
the one. We're going to wrap it up now. Maybe Ari will guitar us out for the second guitar solo of the podcast history. But from myself, Stephen, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. You're a pleasure. Worth the flight.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's been a real nice welcome to just to come in and be like, oh, we're doing a podcast interview with you. So that's a cool surprise for me, and I always enjoy talking about what I do and how much of an impact Dynomyco can have on the world, and it's really a unique product, and it's been a joy to travel around the world and introduce it to the world too, which it's pretty cool to think that 4 years ago this product didn't exist, and now it's sold global all around the world. We sell about we're selling thousands of units a month on Amazon, and it's getting out there to the masses, which is really cool. And if we can get one grower to start with mycorrhizal fungi and reduce the amount of fertilizer inputs and, synthetic nutrients that he's using, and start going to a more organic style of cultivation, we've definitely done our share and in making, the world a more sustainable place, and hopefully produce better food or better medicine, whatever it is that, the guys are growing with Dynomyco are doing.
Amazing. I wanted to ask you if it's okay.
Sure.
We have not many subscribers in Israel, but when I have a guest on that knows the language, I'd love you to give a message to our subscribers that listen in Israel.
תודה רבה שהקשבתם לנו, היה כיף גדול להיות אורח כאן, ותשלחו הודעה אם אתם רוצים, נשמח לקשקש איתכם.
Now you're going to have to tell me what you've said. He slated me. He said, the fella with the beard is an ugly bastard, and don't look at any pictures of him.
I'm the one with the beard over here.
You are. It's much better than mine.
I said thank you for listening to us, and if you want to get in touch, please reach out and send a message. We'll be happy to chat with you.
Amazing. Yeah. Do you run the Dynomyco Instagram?
Yep.
Oh, great. Yep. So if you've got questions, then fire them into the Instagram.
Yeah, you can reach out.
Amazing.
At Dynomyco. You can follow me if you want. I'm not as interesting, but mine is Ari. It's at Ari Dynomyco, ARI Dynomyco. So you can follow me also. I don't post a lot of stuff, but every once in a while you'll see me with a cannabis figure maybe, or, Jorge Cervantes or Ed Rosenthal, or, someone in that community, and from, international. And I post, some stuff from my highlining adventures and outdoor adventures. So some cool stuff.
I'll be following for sure. I will definitely be having you on another podcast. I will be doing more research so I can ask you better questions, because I think you're a wealth of untapped information, and I'm going to tap into it. and I'll speak again to you soon.
I'm looking forward to coming back to in August for the summer
Summer social.
The summer social.
We'll be definitely hooking up because
and then there's the Product Earth also, which I've heard is a great thing. So we've been working with Highlight for 2 years now, and this is the first time I've been able to come out to the UK. So it's been long overdue, and unfortunately, there's been the whole lockdowns and COVID and all that stuff. So finally, with restrictions lifted, it was the perfect opportunity for me to come out, and it's been totally just now, just with this interview, it's been worth the trip.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming on, and we will definitely speak to you again soon. Play us out, Ari.
All right. What are we doing? An English or a Hebrew song?
Hebrew. I like culture.
All right, let's see what we can do. This one's called, in Hebrew, it's called Wounds and Kisses.
Oh.
Ptsa'im v'neshikot. Let's see if I can get it. You want to hear me sing it also?
If you want. Bonus.
All right, let's try it. My last name is Singer, which is funny.
Yeah, so you have to.
All right, I'll try it out. Ptsa'im ונשיקות, כל השקרים וכל השתיקות, חוזרים פה מהמרים עם קופסת הקלפים, ונעליים מבריקות, שארית טוב וארגזי קרטון, מעשה אומנות או מעשה יום יום, אני עוזב היום, לה 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 לה. Pa 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 la 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 la.
Fantastic.
It goes on for a little bit longer, but we'll call it a day at that.
Thank you very much to everyone listening. I'm sure you've been well entertained by this podcast, and we'll be back again next week for another podcast. See you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.